The snow didn't fall like in Christmas movies, it attacked. They were blades of white ice slicing the air horizontally, turning the city into a hostile, frozen blur. It was 11:30 p.m. on Christmas Eve. The whole world seemed to be inside heated houses, unwrapping gifts and drinking hot chocolate. The whole world, except me. My name is Clara Valente, and my Christmas present this year was an eviction notice and a suitcase with half my clothes. My father, the man who was supposed to protect me, had gambled away the deed to our small antique restoration shop and our home. He lost. And then, like the coward he always was, he disappeared, leaving me to face the debt collectors who came knocking with smiles that didn't reach their eyes. I had been walking for an hour since my old car died on the side of the road, the engine giving up against the brutal cold. My feet were numb inside cheap boots. My fingers, which used to be capable of bringing Renaissance paintings back to life with delicate touches, were now blue and stiff, gripping the handle of my suitcase. I stopped under the awning of a closed department store, shivering so imperceptible, curved the corner of his mouth. It wasn't a smile of amusement. It was the smile of a predator who just discovered the prey still has teeth. We shall see, Clara. We shall see what you can fix. The car slowed down. I looked out the window and lost my breath. We were passing through wrought iron gates that must have been 5 meters high, decorated with natural pine garlands and golden lights glowing against the storm. Before us rose not a house, but a modern fortress of glass, black stone, and steel. The Moretti mansion glowed in the dark night. But it wasn't a cozy Christmas decoration. It was aggressive. Huge trees flanked the entrance, covered entirely in cold white lights, turning the surrounding snow into a field of blinding diamonds. It was beautiful, breathtaking, and absolutely terrifying. The car stopped under the portico. The door on my side was opened by a security guard before I could move. The cold air tried to bite me again, but it lasted only seconds until I was guided, or the lingerie. There was a dress. It was velvet, in a deep shade of emerald green, the color of a forest at night. I lifted it from the box. It was heavy, luxurious. The design was vintage, with long, tight sleeves, a square neckline that left the collarbones exposed, and a side slit that went dangerously high up the thigh. I put the pieces on as if I were putting on armor. The silk slid over my clean skin, the velvet hugged my curves with shocking intimacy. I didn't need to zip it up, it fit perfectly, as if it had been sewn onto my body. I walked to the full-length mirror with a gold frame in the corner of the room. The girl looking back wasn't Clara Valente, the bankrupt restorer and orphan of a living father. That girl had disappeared in the snow. The woman in the mirror was a vision of contrasts, pale, luminous skin against dark velvet, damp hair falling in waves over her shoulders, red lips naturally swollen from the heat of the bath. I looked expensive. I looked dangerous. I looked like his. There was a knock on the main door of the suite. Miss? The deep voice of a security guard. Again. His scent, dark spices and danger, enveloped me. I have a collection. Works that cannot be taken to museums or public restorers. Works that need discretion as much as they need talent. He smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Your father owes me 2 million euros, Clara. You are not going to pay that debt in my bed. You are going to pay it in my studio. My mouth fell open. The revelation was a relief and a new form of terror. I wasn't a concubine. I was a forced employee. A luxury slave for a criminal's private collection. You want me to restore stolen art, I stated, the puzzle piece fitting into place. Liberated art, he corrected gently. And legitimate art too. I have varied tastes. And if I refuse? Matteo laughed. It was a low, dry, humorless sound. He looked around the opulent room, at the perfect garlands, the candles, the blizzard roaring against the bulletproof windows outside. Out there is Christmas, Clara. People are singing about peace and goodwill. But the reality is that out there it is cold and you have no one. If you refuse, the front door is unlocked. You can leave in the dress you are wearing, new acquisition. You will have everything. The whole world, if necessary, to make her face perfect again. He reached out and, in a gesture that surprised me, tucked a loose strand of my hair behind my ear. The tips of his fingers grazed my sensitive earlobe, and a shiver ran down my spine, hot and dangerous. It starts tomorrow, he decreed. Or rather, today. It's already past 2 in the morning. He pulled away, breaking the unbearable tension. Let's go. I'll take you to your room. Christmas is over, Miss Valente. Work begins at sunrise. As we walked back through the silent, decorated corridors, I felt the weight of my new reality. I wasn't just restoring a painting. Sacred, and twisted my hair into a makeshift bun, sticking the brush through to hold it. The movement pulled the skin of my neck, exposing my nape. I heard the sound of fabric rustling against fabric when Matteo shifted position, but I didn't turn around. I took a deep breath, inhaling the smell of turpentine as if it were oxygen, and left Clara, the victim, at the door. There, in front of the canvas, I was Clara, the master. I stepped closer to the painting. Under the surgical light of the spots, the damage was even more visceral. The cut went through the heart of the painted woman. The edges of the canvas were frayed, curling inward like the lips of a wound refusing to close. Who is she? I asked, my voice echoing in the vast space. Matteo took a while to answer. The silence stretched, heavy. My mother, he said finally. The word fell to the floor like a stone. My hand stopped halfway to the canvas. The woman in red. I extended my hand. He took it as if it were made of blown glass. His hand was huge compared to mine, rough in places, calloused, hands of someone who knew how to fight, but also someone who knew how to hold the world. He began to massage the palm of my hand. It was devastating. His thumb found a knot of tension at the base of my thumb and pressed firmly. I let out a shaky sigh, my head falling back against the sofa cushions. He worked every finger, stretching the joints, dissolving the pain of the minute work. It was the most intimate touch I had ever felt. It wasn't overtly sexual, it was functional, healing, and for that reason, incredibly erotic. You have talented hands, Clara, he murmured, eyes focused on my fingers as he worked on them. But they are fragile. You are pushing mine, hard and hot, making it clear exactly how much he wanted me. You saved her, he whispered against my mouth, between frantic kisses descending down my neck. You fixed what was broken. I am a restorer, I panted, tilting my head back to give him more access. It's what I do. He stopped, face buried in the curve of my neck, heavy breath burning my skin. His hands went down to my waist, squeezing tightly, as if he wanted to make sure I was real. Then fix me, he asked, the vulnerability in his voice sharper than any blade. Because since you got into that car, Clara, I feel like I am coming undone. He lifted his head and looked me in the eyes. His pupil was dilated, devouring the gold of the iris. The new year has begun, he said. The financial debt still exists. But from now on, the rules have changed. I don't want you just in my studio, that we're on the floor. What's going on? I asked, feeling a sudden chill in my stomach that had nothing to do with the room temperature. Matteo put on the knit sweater, hiding the scars and the heat I had felt minutes before. He turned to me. The lover had vanished. The jailer was back. Stay here, Clara. Do not leave this room. Do not go near the windows. Matteo, what happened? He walked to the door, stopping with his hand on the knob. He didn't look back. "Your father," he said, and the word was like a bucket of ice water. He reappeared. And it seems he sold the same debt to two different people. The door closed with a soft click. I was left alone in the huge bed, surrounded by the smell of sex and danger, while reality kicked down the gates of our winter fortress. The outside world had found us. Matteo's order, "Do not go near the windows," echoed in the empty room like a warning from a doomed prophet. But I wasn't a medieval damsel to sit on the bed wringing my hands while men decided my fate outside. Fear was a metallic taste in my mouth, but the need to know was stronger. I stood up, ignoring my nakedness for a second before pulling the black silk sheet from the bed and wrapping it with both hands. "Are you afraid?" I looked at him. At the killer who had just executed a man in the snow so no one else would touch me. I thought of my father running away like a rat. I thought of the world outside, cold and treacherous. And then I looked at the man in front of me, who was willing to set the city on fire to keep me in his bed. "No," I replied, and for the first time, it was true. "I am not afraid of you." Matteo rested his forehead against mine. "Good. Because starting today, the only dangerous thing in this house for you is me." He kissed me, a kiss tasting of winter and violent promises. I knew I was damned. But as he laid me back on the bed, covering my body with his to warm me, I realized I preferred to be damned with him than saved by anyone else. January dragged over the city like a sheet of lead. Outside the walls of the Moretti mansion, the war Matteo had predicted had begun. I saw it on the news: industrial accidents, warehouses burned at the docks, mysterious disappearances. I saw it in the tension of Matteo's shoulders when he came home late at night, smelling of cold gunpowder and exhaustion, seeking my body in bed as if I were the only solid thing in a crumbling world. But inside the studio, time was measured in brushstrokes, not bullets. Groan, half roar. He wrapped his arms around me, lifting me off the floor, burying his face in my neck. The embrace was crushing, desperate. It wasn't the embrace of a gentle lover, it was the embrace of a castaway finding dry land. "You will regret it," he whispered against my skin. "One day, when the blood reaches our doorstep, you will hate me for not forcing you onto that plane." "Maybe," I replied, holding on to him just as tightly. "But not today." Outside, the winter night was dark and full of dangers. But inside the studio, under the serene gaze of the woman in red, the contract had been burned. What remained wasn't a debt, nor a kidnapping. It was a choice. And we had just sealed our fate together. February arrived, not with a thaw, but with a crystalline cold that turned the city into an ice sculpture. My life in the Moretti mansion had changed. The doors were no longer locked. The guards no longer looked at me like a prisoner, but with the cautious respect reserved for the woman sleeping in the boss's bed. And Matteo had become my gravity. But the isolation couldn't last forever. The war in the streets had calmed to a tense ceasefire, but rumors ran wild. They said Matteo Moretti was weak, distracted by a woman. They said the bank wear red, he asked. To match the painting? No. He touched my face, a gesture of shocking intimacy in front of hundreds of witnesses. Because red is the color of warning. It is the color that says danger. I wanted everyone to know that touching you is the same as touching fire. He kissed me. There, in the middle of the auction, in front of his enemies, in front of the society that despised me. It wasn't a kiss of raw possession like in the studio. It was a kiss of devotion. A kiss that said, "This is my queen, and I will burn the world for her." When we pulled apart, breathless, I heard the auctioneer announce the first lot. But I knew the true prize of the night had already been claimed. I had entered that hall as the mafia boss's mistress. I was leaving as his partner. And God have mercy on anyone who tried to separate us now. The way back to the mansion was a winding road bordered by black pine forests. Inside the armored SUV, the silence was electric, but not tense. It was the satiated silence of winners. The adrenaline of the confrontation with Rossi still ran in my veins, mixed with the champagne I had barely drunk. Courtyard with light. Guards ran out of the house. We were inside. I coughed, airbag dust choking me. My vision was blurry. Clara. I looked back. Matteo was slumped on the leather seat. The tuxedo shoulder was soaked, blood running onto the beige upholstery. But he was conscious. He was looking at me with a mixture of pain and savage adoration. You are. He coughed, grimacing. You are completely crazy. I opened the door and fell into the snow. My bare feet sank into the ice, but I didn't feel the cold. I ran to the back door and opened it. Help! I screamed to the approaching guards. He's hurt. I pulled Matteo. He leaned on me, heavy, hot. His blood stained my red dress, camouflaging perfectly into the carmine fabric, exactly as he had predicted. As the guards took his weight and carried him into the house, Matteo grabbed my hand with his good hand. He squeezed tight, refusing to let go. My queen, he whispered, before pain took him into darkness. I looked at the road behind us, at the hole in the wall, at the burning forest in the distance. The auction had been a parade. This had been the wedding. And we had just exchanged blood vows. The private medical room in the mansion smelled of antiseptic and contained fear, a violent contrast to the pine and cinnamon scent permeating the rest of the house. I stood beside the gurney, still in my red silk dress, now torn at the hem and darkened by Matteo's and Enzo's blood. My bare feet, numb from ice, left wet footprints on the pristine floor.